In the shadowed corridors of human history, some stories remain whispered, soaked in fear, shrouded in the macabre, and yearning to be heard. Today, through the Nightside Archive, we bring you the tale of the Plague-Born Revenant of Kroff. If you think you know folk tales about the undead, think again, because this one chills on an entirely different level. Stay with me as we explore a tale that stitches legend, history, and something far darker than fiction. During the 14th century, a disease swept across Europe that would come to be known infamously as the Black Death. Krakow, a bustling Polish city of cobbled streets and towering spires, unfortunately, was not spared this deadly scourge. Citizens succumbed in droves to the sickening grip of bubonic plague, and though people sought both divine mercy and medical remedies, often neither worked. But among Krakow's many tragic fatalities, one stood bizarrely apart. Local legend refers to him only as Janek, a gravedigger cursed to eternal unrest. Janek was a man whose fate became the subject of whispers, growing louder and darker with every passing decade since his untimely demise. Janek was a loner. The very nature of his grim work, tending to Krakow's dead, set him apart. But he had a sinister reputation. You see, gravediggers were often accused of profiting from the plague, pilfering valuables from corpses before they were interred. Rumors plagued Janek more fiercely than the disease itself. Villagers claimed to hear him laughing deep into the night while haunting Krakow's burial grounds, a sinister cackle that bled into nightmares. As the death toll mounted, tales of Janek's nocturnal antics grew more horrifying. Some claimed he wasn't just stealing rings off fingers or pilfering coins from purses, but wrenching open freshly dug graves in search of more grotesque and forbidden loot. Others whispered something even darker, that Janek had struck a deal with pestilence itself. Was it true? Did the gravedigger offer sacrifices to the plague, believing he could bargain his safety with the essence of his victims? What happened next cemented Janek as both the scourge of Krakow and a cursed figure whose name inspired fear centuries later. Late one storm-ridden night, when pale lightning etched jagged paths across the city's skyline, Janek was caught in the act. According to the account, peasants found the man knee-deep in a dug-up grave, holding something horrifying. Not jewelry, not gold, but a tattered fragment of a plague victim's shroud soaked with dried blood. The villagers were enraged, their grief eclipsing any rationality. In an act of mob justice, Janek was dragged to the edge of town, nails gouging the damp soil as he clawed at the ground to resist. His screams went ignored. A makeshift noose was fashioned, and by sunrise, Janek swung lifelessly beneath the boughs of an ancient oak tree. His death, they believed, would bring relief, perhaps even divine absolution to the plague-ravaged streets of Krakow. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. Within days of Janek's execution, reports of mysterious happenings trickled through the community and then transformed into a deluge. It began innocently enough. A woman spotted shadow-like movements darting between tombstones, and the hollow clang of bells rang out, though the sky was windless. Then things escalated. Pets went missing. Livestock turned up dead in barns. More disturbingly, peasants whispered a common thread. A gaunt figure, drenched in the chilling pallor of undeath, prowling amidst the burial grounds. Worse still, these occurrences weren't just bound to evenings riddled with ghastly clouds and moonlight. By daylight, Children claimed to hear faint footsteps behind them in the fields, yet no one was there. What made dozens swear in terror was the uncanny familiarity of those haunting footfalls, the limping pace that Janek was infamous for before his end. More chilling was a butcher's testimony decades after Janek's death. He swore that a withered face with hollowed eyes and flesh split as if by dry rot peered through his kitchen's frosted window. Beneath the necrotic flesh, the shredded skin still bore traces of Janek's wicked grin. The story doesn't end there. As Krakow's inhabitants succumbed not only to death but divine fear, a priest from the city's most revered cathedral allegedly proposed an unthinkable plan. Convinced the spirit of Janek had risen to wreak havoc upon the living, the townsfolk had to dig him up, risk exposing themselves to the curses of improper burial, and vanquish him once and for all. So, under the brittle veil of a moonless sky, a group of Krakow's bravest, or perhaps most terrified, citizens marched upon the cemetery. Standing there, grasping torches and iron rods, no one dared breathe too loudly. One swift excavation was all it took, for Janek's resting place bore an eerie anomaly. The ground atop his burial had been disturbed. Someone, or something, clawed its way out. Accounts from the time allege that the body was never truly found in its entirety, only grisly remnants. They discovered his decayed left hand gripping the soil as if caught mid-climb to freedom, while fragments of what might have been his clothing fluttered in ghostly tatters. Laying to rest what couldn't rise yet demanded audience with the living, locals conducted a revenant ritual, an archaic burial rite meant to return wandering souls back to their graves. The bizarre events post-ritual are rumored to heavily diverge. Some say the city returned to normalcy as Krakow's dead found peace again. Yet others claim Janek's curse endured. His appearances became less frequent, but infinitely more dreadful. Hundreds swore his vengeful laughter echoed during every century's darkest storms. In modern Krakow, where bustling shops and neon cafes thrive against a romantic medieval skyline, whispers of Janek persist in a more literary form, passed as allegory by storytellers. Though many dismiss the tale as pure fabrication to suppress gravediggers' moral corruption during the Plague era, what cannot be erased are the bleak feelings visitors experience at Krakow's forgotten cemetery sites. Why does hushed laughter still echo if you stand too long by the graves? Could it still be Janek, the Plague-Born Revenant, roaming in search of redemption nobody living can grant him? Now tell me, viewer, would you dare to walk Krakow's ancient graveyards when the storm clouds swell and thunder's roar awakens the past? After tonight's tale from the Nightside Archive, who could blame you if you check twice over your shoulder while the rain taps against your window? Was this a symptom of historical hysteria, or does the curse still linger? There's no denying that some storms feel heavy with spectral energy you can hardly comprehend. Thank you for venturing through this cursed corridor of the Nightside Archive. Don't forget to venture back next time for another harrowing episode. Until then, avoid the graves shrouded in misery, for on dark nights you may find yourself peering too close into their secrets.